let's get to climate change. Big deal, climate change. What's your plan of making sure that Uganda's development is sustainable and in tandem with this global movement of climate change? Do you actually believe in climate change?
That's an interesting question, because I'll tell you this. There's nobody who does not believe in climate change.
Okay.
But there are some people who don't believe in human-made and human-influenced climate change.
Okay.
Now,
explain the difference.
The difference is climate changes, and they have always changed.
Okay.
Climate has always changed. And actually, if you look over the past 400 years, and by the way, there are even so many top scientists who don't believe in human-made climate change. They say the change of climate is influenced by other things apart from human activity.
Okay.
So, and now, but even if I were to believe, I actually, I tend towards those who don't believe that it's influenced by human activity. But even if I was to believe in climate change, the issues that we have in Uganda are so urgent that climate change is an absolute luxury. It's like buying dog food for a household whose children are starving, okay? And the last thing on our minds is feeding the dogs. So the truth is we have very urgent problems as a country. And some are moved around this country and seen the levels of poverty. And they can move you to tears. That's the honest truth.
I agree.
And people who have half a meal a day, and you wonder how this, and they just need something small, and they are not asking for too much.
So you're not the type that is going to arrest a man trying to get ahead.
Sorry?
You're not the kind of president who wants to send your environmental police to arrest a man whose only livelihood is charcoal under climate change.
How do you tell a man that if you don't stop doing this 50 years from now, the levels of carbon dioxide are going to have increased by what? Yet the man has nothing to eat today. Does he have the luxury of 50 years from now? Does he even have the luxury of next year? There are people even who don't have the luxury of tomorrow. So we have to be realistic in some of these things.
When you came, you see, what I also don't understand, maybe let me agree with you a bit here. I mean, because we're all Ugandans, is you're telling him, stepping out of a Land Cruiser that is a V8, 4.6 engine, and you're the one emitting carbon.
Yes.
Interesting.
And that's the irony of it, because we had people, you know, even in those climate change, you know, influenced sort of thing, where people are coming out of private jets and nothing hits the environment quite like that.
But of course, the stats are also clear that we are not the biggest contributors to emissions.
No, we aren't.
Although we are suffering the worst.
We are suffering the worst. We are not by any stretch of the imagination. Are we the most industrialized? We aren't. We actually have our biggest climate issues are dust.
So do you think that...
not carbon dioxide at all.
So do you think that in that global perspective, it will go down to foreign policy and getting ambassadors to go to these Paris agreements and all to negotiate for us better, saying, you emit the carbons, if you want us to contribute, then you're going to have to solve our poverty problems?
That's actually what they pledged to do. If you read the Paris, you know, climate change accord, when was it? It was just before, I think 2014 or 2015. Yes. If you read it, they actually pledged to give a lot of money to countries like ours to help us find alternatives.
Hopefully that when it gets here, it works.
Of course, when it gets here, that's another story. But then we can actually do it. For instance, we can reduce the amount of, even just for our simple climate, you know, issues. You know, what we have an 18% electricity reach, 18%. That's very low. It has got to be higher.
It has risen over the years.
But we have the highest amount of, we pay the most amount for electricity in this region. Tanzania, who buy some of our electricity, charge actually almost half per kilowatt, half of what we charge people, half. Yet they actually buy from us. Kenya buy from us their electricity is much cheaper than ours as well. Tanzania is drastically much cheaper than ours, and it shocks me how cheap electricity is in that place. But Kenya is just slightly lower, but it shouldn't be. Now, yet actually in Kenya, a lot of the industries were fleeing the country, saying the reason they are doing so is because of very high power tariffs. And yet their power tariffs are much less than ours. Now imagine what we are talking of: industrialization, creating jobs for youth, and what we can't do that with the power tariffs that we have.
Okay.
And because the dams that we are creating, and they said they will, when we finish with Karuma and Isimba, that the tariffs will go down, but they are not going to go down. I can guarantee that, because even the prices of those dams, they have been grossly overpriced.
But how do you strike the balance? Because Europe got to where it is probably by saying, let's develop. We shall look at climate issues later. Before they knew it, they had more industries than they could sustain their environment on. So how do you push industrializing us, getting the young people jobs, getting everybody living a better quality of life, while also thinking about nature? Because again, as persons of faith, we have to be responsible in how we use the environment.
I think the most important thing is to get people jobs, get industrialization if we can, because some of the things which we report we can actually make here, get industrialization, get cheaper power. That is what it is going to take. We cannot have genuine industrialization until we have cheaper power, because Kenya lost a lot of industries just because of power prices. And yet theirs are cheaper than ours. So we have no hope in that area. So we have to reduce power prices. I don't know how it is going to be done, because a lot of these deals are being entered, but somehow it has to be done if we are going to get jobs for you. Now, when the people have jobs, and when they are comfortable at a certain level, and when the farmers in the village are producing and have market for their goods, and they are beginning to have middle class problems like environment and so on, then we can talk about it. But right now, we are imposing middle class problems on people down there who actually have very basic problems.
So you will. So will you abide then to the Paris Agreement?
Well. That's I will.
Okay.
I will. Yeah. But it is not very. It's actually very soft on us. Okay. If you said it's actually harder on America, China, and so on. And
I sort of see you wanting to have a conversation with the French ambassador and the French president before you determine which direction you will go.
Even the countries like France, France tried to abide by their own agreement, which was signed in their own country, and guess what happened? The yellow vests, riots.
Yes.
You remember that?
Yes.
There was a huge riot because they were trying to implement those climate change things. So, and that is France. Now imagine Uganda. So even France struggled to implement. China has not implemented one bit. They are not interested, but they are there. But they go by their own rules. America pulled out under Donald Trump. And I guess I don't know who else is going to pull out. I think Hungary and even Brazil were considered. So it's a whole mess of a thing.
But you'd want to know, one of the things I found out when I was being taken around around France is that France is demonstration happy. And if you want demonstrations for any reason or whatever excuse, one of the best places to go is France. So demonstrations in France happen for all sorts of reasons.
For Uganda, Uganda for Uganda, Rwanda, Uganda, Uganda for Uganda. Let's rock this nation. Mutandikanga bataka.